All right, so by now you've probably heard the news that Disney, Pixar pulled a transgender character storyline from their upcoming animated series Win or Lose. And it's a little frustrating, right? I mean, I feel
Oh
like
yeah.
it's a big deal because the chuds, the grifters, the scammers would have you believe that Disney has an agenda and that agenda is more important to them than anything else, including making money. I would say that this breaks that narrative because it's the
Oh,
second one now
absolutely.
that's happened. They did it with Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, and now they've done it with Win or Lose. So there's a pattern. We've had it happen twice now where they've removed transgender characters. Yeah, this is wild, right?
Yeah, so it's happening again. And one of the things that I remember when I covered Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur was the when Disney came out, they said, "Oh no, we aren't doing it because of the election. We aren't doing it because of the election. This is a long ago decision. We just didn't like the episode." And I remember at the time being like, that's bullshit. But like, there was a part of me that was like, maybe it's accurate. I don't know. I don't know the behind the scenes stuff. But now we have this story where they're pulling a transgender storyline from this Pixar series. It's like, okay, yeah. My initial instinct was 100% correct. It is complete bullshit. They're just doing this.
They're trying to coddle
Yeah.
conservative viewers at this point because they want to make sure they have all their bases covered. Come, next year we have 4 years of this bullshit to deal with, and they want to make sure that they're coddling the right audience. But the reality is that they have spent a big chunk of their time participating in rainbow and pink capitalism, trying to sway gay and trans and queer people to showing they have support for them. Earlier this year, they did their whole Pride initiative in June. Yeah. And I think the issue is now the community is not going to forget. This is a big deal. The series doesn't even come out till next year. I believe it's early next year.
February. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's right before we get into Pride season. And this is not going to be good for them in terms of PR. This is going to look really bad because at the very least, the conservative community had a lot of people barking about stuff that just wasn't true.
Yeah.
Like this ideology, this agenda, all these other things. They're barking about this stuff that wasn't true. This is true. They've actually removed trans characters from two of their properties now, from a Marvel property and a Pixar property. So they've done that. So now there's legitimate proof that they have done this. Whereas before it was all just speculation and hyperbole and things like that. And here we have information. This is from the Hollywood Reporter. And what does that say there on the screen?
Oh, I highlight this because it's the statement Hollywood Report got from Disney. When it comes to anime content for younger audiences, we recognize that many parents would prefer to discuss certain subjects with their children on their own terms and timeline, which just sounds exactly like a chud deflection, frankly.
Oh, it absolutely is.
Yeah. It is.
I mean,
like
the reality is, and I thought about this when I read that statement. I made an initial reaction video. I didn't talk too deeply about it because I was just so flabbergasted, I guess, by their decision to do this so publicly. Typically, they would like. I'm very curious. What were they thinking with this announcement? Because they could have removed this from the cartoon and probably never, or at least minimized the damage because people might not have known that that was the case, right? They would have known about it.
Yeah.
But they made a point of making the statement about this. Now, I don't know if they were trying to get ahead of some leak that was out there. That's possible. But wouldn't everything in these types of stories be something that parents would rather discuss with their children? I mean, we're talking about a series that's going to deal with children in a high stress situation. It's a sports situation. I'm pretty sure that there's going to be conflict in it. To say this tells me that every other thing that we're going to discuss, we feel like we have the right to discuss it. But because conservatives feel like trans people and gay people are a threat to children, we're going to make some stupid bullshit statement about caring about parents wanting to talk to their kids about these things. The reality is that parents could still talk to their kids about it.
Oh, yeah.
We'll do that. The point of putting it in the cartoon is not only to add representation, but to also create dialogue. And they've removed that now. So now kids will never ask their parents about this stuff because if a parent decides they want to prevent their kids from ever knowing that trans people exist, the mythical unicorn of trans people, they could just simply wipe it away. It's a little ridiculous, honestly.
Oh, well, I mean, I will tell you as a parent myself, when it comes when there's something like this where it's like, maybe you should discuss something with your kid, then discuss it with your kid.
Right.
There's like, if you think, them coming across it will traumatize them, then discuss it with them. Don't hide it from them.
Or they could simply just not watch the show. This is internal censorship against trans people, because if they wanted to leave the character in the series, then people could choose not to watch it like they've been doing all along. You remove the character because now you are trying to bait the conservative audience. You're actively trying to pander to the conservative audience. So this is the complete opposite of what all of these chuds have been saying all along. And this is one of the frustrating things for me, and Bob, I'm pretty sure you feel the same way about this. One of my big issues with the grifty, chuddy space on YouTube was the concept that these corporations had a virtue signaling agenda for queer people. Because it's always been about the money. Yeah. I have been saying that for ages. As long as we've been talking about this, I've always said I never believe that these corporations are true allies to any marginalized community. They're not. They might have people working within the corporations that are allies, but the corporations themselves are not. They're just a boogeyman for these people to go after. They care about money. They care about shareholders. We just saw news that David Zaslav, the head of Warner Brothers Discovery, sold $30 million in shares of that company before the end of the year, cashing out before they break up the company into two different divisions. These are all people that want money. They don't care about any of the stuff they stand by. And actually, the scene that was taken out was leaked online. It's less than a minute and 30 seconds long. And we've got the storyboard. People have already posted it online now. We know what the scene was supposed to be. And I have to tell you, overreaction doesn't even begin to describe what Disney did with this. It's just complete bullshit.
Okay. I'd be down for checking that out. But
all right. So here's the scene in question. We'll watch it in a second. But you were saying something. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no. I was just going to say, we've like, they've always been arguing that somehow like a woke agenda is greater for these companies than money, which made no sense. When they talk about ESG scores, the reason for ESG score is to get more investors for money. It's always been about money. You want to talk about like how they, sneak a same-sex kiss at the end of Rise of Skywalker, then edit it out in other territories. Why they do that? Because of money. Yeah. It's always been about the goddamn money.
Even when they accused them of censoring, remember they accused, which has been proven false now, they accused them of censoring Black Panther in China to get it released in China. It's already been proven that didn't happen. But say, for example, it did say, if that's the narrative they went with, it still proves that they value money over everything else. You can't have an agenda, but also value money over social issues. That's two completely different combating ideas in their head. You can't do that.
I mean, going back to the Black Panther argument, there's also the Force Awakens argument where they talk about, oh, Finn was so much smaller on the Chinese poster. But when you actually think about it, when Force Awakens was being advertised, they were actually kind of doing a red herring in America, kind of teasing that Finn would be the new Jedi. So it actually kind of makes sense in the American poster having be a bit bigger. I don't know if in the Chinese, if they advertised it in the same way in the Chinese market, but I'm assuming they didn't. And if they didn't, it would make sense to have him be smaller because he's not a major. Well, he is a major character, but he's not the major focus.
Yeah, I mean, and they also said the same thing about the Captain America stuff. They were saying that they created the mask for Sam to wear so they could advertise Captain America in China with the mask on so people wouldn't know that it was a Black guy. But then we've already seen now they've revealed the poster for China and he's literally holding the shield. It's the one with the shield and the punch and it shows his face. So it's all smoke and mirrors. It's all lies. We do have a statement also from the actress who played the character in the series, who is a trans woman. And I'm going to read that in a second. But let's look at this storyboard here and see what this was. This is a very rough edit, but you get the general idea of what they were trying to do. And for me, it's almost the overreaction is so incredible in this. In the scene, we'll see there's a character suffering from what looks to be some gender dysphoria, but it shows that the parent comes in and shows them love and embraces them, and that's it. That's the scene. This is what was removed. It's 1 minute and 14 seconds. So let's watch this and see if all of this this reaction that Disney had, if it holds any merit. Let's
all right.
That's it. That's the
Wow.
whole scene.
I mean,
So it's a moment where the kid is suffering
yeah,
from some gender dysphoria and gets support from the coach. The parent calls, makes him feel better. So it's really just a very short scene that
yeah.
addresses this trans character. This is what was removed from the episode.
And that moment that represents, that could happen to like a real life kid, you know, when if they're suffering or if they're dealing with gender dysphoria. And you know, just you know, having you know that represented, having a piece of media where they see that can help them um kind of just I don't know. I find it frustrating it was cut out now that I see it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
And the
is,
act
it seems like actually a very sweet scene. And
yeah. And if you go back
yeah.
and watch it, the dialogue is at the bottom. So I know a lot of people were probably wondering why there wasn't dialogue. The dialogue were the notes at the bottom of the storyboard.
Hmm.
But Chanel Stewart, who is a trans woman who voiced this character, was told on a phone call that the character is now going to be a straight cisgender girl.
I saw you post
Um,
against that, and that
yeah.
actually confused me initially. I had to read it like a couple times and then get fast first sentence because I was like, wait, I thought they were trans. What does it have to do with them being
Yes. And
straight?
they
I'm
said
confused.
straight, right? So
Yeah,
so the
like
people that
what?
were telling her this over the phone used the term straight girl. And I thought, like, do they not understand that trans people also would have a different range of sexuality? So
Yeah,
what they're
yeah,
not always going to be uh
yeah.
gay or
Trans
straight. They
people
could
can be
be
straight, can be
pan or
straight.
bisexual or any of any of
Yeah,
those things. But anyway, I don't even think it matters really, because it didn't seem like in that storyboard that the character was dealing with a relationship issue. It seemed like it was
no,
gender dysphoria, which means the idea of sexuality doesn't even come into question in that scene. It is about gender dysphoria. So, and that has nothing to do with sexuality. So I thought that was interesting. They said that, but she spoke out about it, and she knew it was the role of a lifetime. She was very excited about doing this. She goes, I was exactly what they wanted to a T, and that's why it felt so right. It just felt so right. I immediately asked my mom if I could do it because I just felt if I don't do this, it would make sense. You know what I mean? She talks about how she had some struggles in her life with gender dysphoria, and so the character was a big connection to her. So the interesting thing about this is they not only removed the scene and they've made the character a cisgender character. I don't think the sexuality of the character is important based on what I've seen in the scene. So whether she's straight or gay doesn't really matter. But they've erased a trans actress's voice from a series where she was cast specifically because she was a trans actress, because they wanted to put that behind this character in the series. So at one point, the people behind the creation, at the very least, knew where they were going with this. So this is a form of Disney censorship, and I think this is what's different from when a lot of people say that something is censored. This is censorship. This is censorship from within Disney. This wasn't the
oh,
creators
absolutely.
deciding, hey, I want to change this story because I think it would benefit the story to do this different thing. This was Disney coming in and saying, we want to coddle and pander and cater to people who are conservative. And I wouldn't say conservative because that's almost offensive to just conservative people. We want to cater to people who are transphobic. We want to cater to people who are anti-queer. And that's what they're doing too. That market is tiny, though. I don't think they understand how small that market is. I mean, there's a lot of conservatives that sort of jump on the train with the people who also are transphobic, and they do sort of exist in that same bubble. But I don't think that the majority of people, and we've already looked at the numbers, the statistics show that a vast majority of conservatives, at least at one point, did not believe in any sort of legislation against trans people or gay people. So it is a smaller minority in that community. So this is almost speaking directly to the administration, speaking directly to the election, based on the people that Donald Trump has selected to take part in that, the Nancy Maces of the world, who want to pull all this bathroom bullshit and things like that.
Yes.
That's what this feels like it is. And it's very upsetting because, it's one thing if they just didn't want to have a trans character in the series, which, by the way, I didn't even know there was a trans character in the series. When I saw the advertisements for it, I just thought, hey, it's a
No.
Pixar cartoon. It's going to have these characters in it. It's been in production for a while. So I wouldn't have even known as a viewer that this was removed from the series had they not made this statement. So the whole thing is baffling to me. It's really just kind of a baffling situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, the whole situation is it's very frustrating. So like lots of people complain about, oh, Disney, gay agenda this. And one of the things that really stumped me about dealing with the chuds and all the things they scream about was the fact that um there really isn't that much in the way of representation throughout Disney. It's not that substantial. It's not that huge. But they treat every single like indication or hint of something as like some huge event. Um and yeah, and now even though they don't have that much, they're removing it,
What are they going to argue
which
about
is
though?
fantastic.
What's the argument
Yeah.
now? Because now they should be singing the praises of Disney, because it seems like Disney is doing everything they want them to do. They're removing trans characters from series. Someone in I have to look this up, but I believe I saw in the news that one of the only black I think executive producer or someone along those lines. I have to double check this. I don't want to misspeak here, but the only black person involved in making some of the Marvel properties like Black Panther, Eternals, things like that, no longer works for Marvel. He was the only black guy in that particular division.
Wow. I
So
didn't know that.
it does look like, at least from the outside, that Marvel is, or Disney as a brand, is looking to get rid of anything that they consider to be diverse. And I mean, are the Chuds going to start singing the praises of Disney? I get called a shill all the time. I'm sure you do
Yeah.
as well. But I
Oh,
never
God, yeah.
side with corporations. I don't side with Disney. I
No.
side with diverse voices within Disney.
Yeah,
So like
I
filmmakers
side
and
with
creative people.
artists. Yeah.
Yeah. Disney as a corporation is bad. We've talked about it before. They're bad to their artists. They're bad to their writers. They're bad to the VFX people. They're bad to a lot of their workers. They're not good for when it comes to like taking care of people that work for them. This is one of the big issues they've had. I've never been a shill for that. I do believe Disney there's a lot of criticism for Disney. I don't think they're perfect. Matter of fact, the last couple of videos on my channel, I've criticized Disney specifically for this reason. And I did the same thing when they did it with Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. I've never been a shill for this company, but these guys have made Disney the bad guy. So now that Disney is doing the things they want them to do, is Disney now a good guy for them? Is that what they're going to do? They're going to shift it up and start praising Disney? I don't think that's going to happen. And it's just going to prove that we've been right all along.
Well, I mean, another piece of evidence that we were right all along was that when the strike was happening last year, massive strikes, and all of a sudden these guys are the Chud content creators, they're all crapping on the strikers instead of telling Disney to pay up. It's almost like they aren't actually anti-corporate.
No, they're bootlickers.
Weird?
That's what it is. They're bootlickers. They like corporations that cater to them, and they and they don't like corporations that don't cater to them, and that's the reality of it. And so now that Disney is catering to them, I would say if Disney does a big swing, say for example they got rid of someone like Kathleen Kennedy, if that finally happened, if they were to get rid of Kathleen Kennedy, which I don't think they will, but say for example they did something like that, these guys would all of a sudden be on their knees for Disney. They would have to, because because what would they argue about at that point? What would they complain about?
I don't know.
The individual creators.
Think there would definitely be a rotation where they're on their knees praising Disney, but then they would have to find something else to focus their outrage on.
Oh, absolutely. They would still focus, I think, on individual creators. They'd probably focus on the directors and the writers and stuff like that. Because the thing is, they scream all the time about cancel culture, but then we have things like this where actual cancel cultures happen. We have a series where they've gone through and they've legitimately canceled a trans storyline.
Yes.
And they've done it twice now. So now there's a pattern. Now there's two things that they've done where they've canceled trans characters existing in these shows. To me, that says that the agenda now is to get trans people and possibly queer people out of positions in their series. Now, Ironheart does have a gay man in the series who is a drag queen that was on RuPaul's Drag Race. I don't know if you remember, the news came out like a couple of years ago that Shea Coulee was going to be on in Ironheart. I'm very curious to what's going to happen with that. Are we going to see pushback against that? Is that going to be the next character on the chopping block? Are they going to remove any sort of if that character was going to have any identity that went outside of straight cisgender norms or the binary? Are we going to see that removed from Ironheart? Is that the next thing to go? I don't know. The show comes out in 2025. We'll have to wait and see. But this is very it's not totally surprising to me, but it is a little bit like I almost wonder if they understand how bad this is going to be for them. I think this is going to be really bad for them. And they're not going to be able to win a lot of trust back. So don't put out any Pride merchandise or trans merchandise in June, Disney, because I don't think it's going to be well received.